And welcome all to the Sim Racing Club's Thursday Night GT3 Championship in cloudy Alton Park. We've set up for an hour-long race. We've got qualifying to come first, 10 minutes for the pro drivers, 10 minutes for the AM drivers, and then we're going to be hitting an hour-long race. See what happens. Big grid tonight with 40 cars. It's going to be kind of highest priority, I think, to be checking for traffic when you're qualifying, and then making sure you stay out of the way of any incidents at the start. And then blue flags, I think it's going to be a big issue from quite early on into the race. So we'll take a quick look at the standings after 2 rounds. This is round 3 of the championship, and it is very close actually up the top, separated by 1 point after 2 rounds. We've got Palmer and Castelli in our top 2, with Roberts just behind after a P2 and a P4. This is obviously counting drops from the start, 1 drop round in the championship, so all really to play for at this point. And we'll see as the standings go, as the championship runs through, kind of how the standings mould and develop with that drop round. It always keeps things interesting till the end. We'll see if we can push forwards. It's looking tonight like the McLarens are looking quick here at a cool Alton Park. Track temperature around 15 degrees. It's going to be kind to the tyres, and actually you may see, not an awful lot of people having to stress their tyres too much. We should see lap times pretty quick throughout the whole of the stint. It is going to be a pit stop required race, with the pit window starting quite early into the race, running all the way through, so those who do get damaged early on the race, they have a good chance to actually get themselves back into that with a bit of an alternative strategy. But we're going to start flicking through the field, and starting with who is out on track. We've got Ellis out on track. Ellis is P4 in the championship in the Lamborghini and has a big spin. That is an unfortunate timed moment. We'll bring that off there and go through to Garrett, who's just taken provisional pole position. In obviously it's free practice, so we don't know what the fuel loads are like. But in the BMW, interesting choice of car in my opinion, the BMW for this track. Got a lot of grunt, quite well balanced car. Be interested to see how well it goes on its tyres, and also it is a bit of a fuel thirsty car for BMW. Myself to head down towards the hairpin. Second gear through here. A bit of traffic on the exit. Looking quick there in the number 116. First on track we have got our AM class lead. So we've talked through the pro standings, but let's jump over to the AM standings. And very much it's again quite close. We've got Rushton having won the first 2 races. So the first, obviously that first win not having counted at the moment, so 2 first places. And then we've got Gabino, Radband, Safertine, Hay, Harris and Duffy are our top 7. Duffy didn't take part in the championship last week. It's been looked pretty quick so far in the McLaren tonight, setting the times for the AM leaders. Obviously our AM class leader at the moment is Rushton in the Aston Martin, car that's famously great with the brakes. Around here that may be the, may give an edge for making some moves. But quite interestingly at the moment, we've actually got the Lexus right behind the Aston Martin, which would be a fascinating pair if those two do end up side by side. Obviously in different classes in the championship, but you'd have the better braking potential versus the absolute straight line speed of the Lexus in the number 1 car. We've got 6 minutes and 55 left. We're going to head back down the order a little bit towards the back of the grid. Obviously what is interesting, with the exception of a couple of cars, is actually quite a close field spread tonight of about 3.5 seconds. Maybe a little bit over, but of course we may have seen some of these cars not come back out for a little while. 43 cars are expected to take part, and then we've got, say, absolute carnage possibly into turn 1. It's going to be a lot of effort required to make sure you get through any incidents. It's a very tight, twisty track. And with 6 minutes left, let's pick a car to go on board with. Let's pick the number 68 of Postal. Let's jump in on board here. He says. we're going to jump on board with the only Audi I think in the field. Left-hander island, probably the hardest corner on the track. Consistent with it, you head down into the second gear, the first gear in the Audi. That's back to the power, use the banking to hold yourself in. Head down towards the chicane, get over that curve nicely, look at the power as well as we head down the back straight. Those key areas, get a good run out of the hairpin over the hilltop straight into Knickerbrook corner. Again, another important corner to roll the speed through, but get on that power nicely. Don't get too far up to the outside curve, it's a section bumpy out there. Head up Clay Hill, down towards the Pearson Druids corner. Just as that brake marker there, down to third gear, get the wheels in, double flips. Again, heading down towards Lodge. Down with the brake marker missing. Nicely balanced there. Second there, heading over towards the pit lane. Another pit lane was a bit tricky here. Very easy to speed in, or clatter a barrier if you're not too careful. So down into the hand pass now. Donkin, 26th position. Seems a little less self-assured there. Run out of the corner wrong. That's some different performance than the free practice. Nice and cool Mustang. A little bit of trouble there. Goes in. Too aggressive. First gear. How hard it is this Mustang. Most powerful with that huge gear. Don't go too far up the exit, really validate. It's only 154.6, so there is some pacing with us now, just going to keep the comfort there. Balance, ready for qualifying. Through the cascades down to the bend now. Smooth and tighter in the exit, they get the power over harder, carry more speed across that final part of the out of the chicane, very hard into the complex. A little bit too much of a shallow line there, that's damaging the exit, and that's where the time's being lost. Trying to find another car. Let's choose. Self-assured driving style. Heading in through this tight pockets of corners. Porsche's rear engine, nice rotation, very difficult throttle there. Get out of the corner. See that rear engine. Squat the engine down. Let's rear the car down. Launch up the corners. Unlike his predecessor, the 902, much more balanced car in 902. Less likely to try and kill its driver on that entry of the corner, but still a little bit of a Porsche oversteer there, just a little bit unbalanced on the way in, and the benefit of that wave retraction. We head back into those cascades, barreling down, third gear trying to get that power nice and hard out, running it out. Exit curve. my opinion. Yeah, and that's why it's so hard, because you hit that inside curve, just the curve as well, and that is going to be an abandonment on that lap. So we jump on board with the Porsche, down in 37th place. This is the 37th in M class, 16th currently in the standard. This is Cheetos. We've got to start in the first round. Fourth place finish last time out. A little bit. Standings. 5 seconds left in this session. We're gonna jump back out and get ready for the. It's Garrett with the best times and qualifying just behind Roberts on the lap as well, but has got on it. Remember, we've got to jump off that circuit. Giveaway practice P1. Interesting mix of cars, we say in that top 10. A lot of McLarens, everyone showing that there is some strength there in the fans. And the circuit, obviously, one balance car with aero performance on the track. A little bit of a bumpy circuit, the older McLaren. Light bumps, the new one is a little bit more comfortable with bumps, that slow corners. And let's take away 19 to the pits, not an improvement. Freeman's already in the pits, and Ellis nope, is the answer to that. Duffy obviously still leading in the down class at the moment, but we are jumping through now. So,
green light.
Getting ready for qualifying. Just got to move ourselves back to the outboard view, and let's see who's come out on circuit first. Obviously, it's going to be a humongous pile of cars to get out of the pit grid. It is the 161, I believe, which is the first car out on the track. So we'll run on board with them in the in the AM class. It's the 161 Ferrari of Tim Alexander-Beach. Interesting to see if they try and hold on to that position, or if they cede position to the cars that are coming up behind. It's the first round for Tim tonight. Didn't take part in the first two rounds, so I'd say in 26th position only because no one else is below 19th position in AM has actually finished a race or taken part in two rounds. So it's all to play for in kind of that top 20 and below. See if we can start to get some good points. So we come down now to start the first of the hot laps. We're right on board with Tim. No we won't, because that is a lap which is basically going to have to be aborted, pretty much starter's weight. So we'll head up and we might go and jump with Rushton, who is the, let's say, the AM class leader in the championship. And then we'll head back to the pros once they come out on the grid after their 10-minute sessions up with the AMs. Cascades down Lakeside Straight. Aston Martin, as I said, a little bit of an unfortunate tangle there between Rushton. This is the difficulty with such a circuit. 20 cars already out in the pit, out from the on the circuit, just from the AMs. It's going to be an absolute car park of points tonight. You're just going to have to manage it, even if you're a faster car. Everyone has the right to be on a hot lap. And this will, you know, probably start to frustrate Rushton a little bit. It's all about setting up that second lap. Thanks, Undead. Good luck tonight, buddy. Running through Druids. A bit of a tighter line there for Rushton, maybe it's optimal, but again, a little bit of an upset performance maybe in the car. Thank you very much. Bit in the background, guys, so just bear with for a moment. So we should be back on board now. We will just have a little look. So it is Donkin currently with the fastest time for 1:34.1 in the Ford Mustang. Excellent stuff. Okay, so we'll after the short gap there, just to check the audio levels, but we're back now through qualifying. So like I say, it is Donkin currently with the fastest time in the AM group, Duffy in second, and a bit of a gap back to Bailiff. Obviously, we talked about Rushton backed off on that lap, so can they get, obviously, our class leader in the championship? Can they find a way forward? Again, step behind another Aston Martin. This I believe of either Burton or Cash. I can't quite see the race number right now, but let's stay on board, see if Rushton can jump up the grid, and they can, up into P3, and the Ferrari of Serpentine is behind. I actually quite like that livery on the 215 car. And quite like, ooh, as we see. Was that facing the wrong way? That was Burton in the 211 Aston Martin, which is cut right in front of Rushton. Made a mistake there into the cascade, just keeping it off the racing line, off the out of the way of those coming up behind. It's a good recovery there. We want to take a little bit of time to just get those tyres back into the window. The advantage of only a track temperature of around 15 degrees. We see the number 3 getting islands all wrong. Manages to just about pull it up in time as we get into the hairpin, but that's going to be a jump back to the pits there. Cover the car, go back out for another try. Let's see, we've got Cash in an Aston Martin. So at the moment it's an interesting battle here in the AM group actually, because we saw, you know, from the top 10 in the Pro group that the Aston Martins, the McLarens were very strong. Here in the AM group it's a little bit different. We've got the Aston Martins making a good performance, a couple of the McLarens in the top 5, and then we've got that Ford Mustang still out in front with the Ferrari as well of McNamee in P3. A little bit of traffic again from recovering 211, but pretty much staying out of the way on the run up towards Druids Corner. Ferrari, of course, very nicely balanced car, very easy car to kind of grab the scruff of the neck of and really kind of throw at the corners. Obviously came into the series, or into the available pool of cars to much acclaim. A lot of drivers got into this car very quickly, and Ferrari sold a lot of these cars quite early on, let's say, through the sim racing field. Did very well from the exposure from that. Since then, there's a few other cars have been introduced. The McLaren is obviously very popular, especially in the current BOP. It's a very, again, downforce heavy car, very predictable. But we've got 2 minutes left in qualifying. It's going to be 2 laps for everybody. Is anyone going to try and dare a jump out the pits? 1 lap banzai, as Martin Brundle would say. Jump down the grid here for the AMs. So we've got Tim here down in 15th. A couple of Ferraris near the back, so maybe the Ferrari isn't in the best of ways competitively. But like I said, it is a very friendly car for newer drivers or those less confident. It does have pretty good overall balance, great downforce, pretty good punch in the straights, but is sometimes, not always the absolute best. We talked about the Porsches earlier. Porsche is one of those kind of Marmite cars. You either really love it with the rear, that rear engine balance, or you really don't. We've got the two, the number 4 and the 317 down here in 13th and 14th position so far in the AM group. Moving up, as I said, the BMW of Bailiff, which we saw dive off the track in a very impressive recovery. But up at the front, it is Cash now from Rushton. Will Duncan try and make another lap? I don't think so. That is the end of Duncan. So P3 there for Duncan, unless someone can snatch it away. Cash is still on the lap though, so we'll stick with them. They are tucked right up behind Duffy. So if these two stay on a clean lap, which I think they both are. Yep, they both are. So this is probably a battle for pole position here in the AM class. So Rushton right behind in terms of the positioning on track at the moment. I think they're right ahead of this group actually when it comes to the actual positions on track. So our leaders in AM are really close together on track. We're going to jump. No, Rushton isn't the car ahead. Oh, and Duffy makes a big mistake. And that is the end of their qualifying. That's another one of the real favourites going into this race. Kind of knocked out, a little bit in the way of the McLaren behind, and off at Druids. It's the number 17 also off. Probably spoilt the lap there, watching Duffy go off, and that is a bit of a shocker there for Radband. Possibly was on a better lap, but completely unsighted into Druids with the other McLaren in front. And it is looking like it's going to be an Aston 1-2. We talked about that just a minute ago, the fact the Astons were looking good in the AM class. Of course, great on the brakes, quite a neutral car to drive, maybe a little bit understeery, but can be very confidence-inspiring in some of our potentially more inexperienced drivers. As we see now, the big switch, out comes the pro cars. We talked about at the start our kind of leaders in the championship. We've got Ellis, we've got Garrett, and obviously we've got Roberts, who we're going to make a start with. Looked very quick, of course, in the free practice session. Yeah, the number 94 car there. Hot tipped to be the favourite tonight. And they make a good start of it. Of course, Auckland Park very difficult to overtake at. Getting a good qualifying position can make a big difference, even in an hour race with strategy, because it's going to all come down to making sure that you hold that track position. If you can make that work, you can have the best fuel strategy. If you've got pole position by a reasonable gap, and you feel confident, you can take that extra bit of fuel. You can run that a little bit later into the... Yeah, absolutely. It looked like there was an error there, and it's a shame, but keep yourself centered, keep yourself balanced there. So we've got some of the drivers in the chat keeping an eye on things, but thank you all who are taking part in the chat as we start with our pro class qualifying. We're on board with Roberts into T1. Nicely balanced, not quite the perfect line through there, just missed the apex itself, but that's okay. It's all about setting up a banker at this point. Yeah, the VOD is going to be up after the stream. As we head now towards Ireland, the McLaren, a nicely balanced car, beautiful line through there, able to tuck it straight back up onto the left, brake nicely into the hairpins, staying in the banking. As we head down towards the first of the two chicane complexes, nicely jumping over the curb there, beautifully back on the power, smooth as butter in the number 94 car here. Obviously this is just a banker lap at the moment, tyres might not be fully up to temp and pressure, but at least a reasonable start here. Flicks it round into Knickerbrook. Beautiful exit, jumping a little bit across that curb, but was on the power nicely, probably had no impact overall on the lap time itself. Head now towards Druids. Possibly a little bit off the perfect line, but very, very close. And like I say, it could be just be that the car balance is just coming into the window, and at the moment it's just a little bit out. But a beautiful exit out of that final corner. What's the lap time going to be as we head up towards the board? Let's jump ourselves up. And it is a 33.5. That's a little bit off that pace we saw earlier, and like I said, that is going to be down to the fact that the tyres aren't going to be in that window yet. But we should see some fireworks soon as we see Garrett in the BMW. We talked about the BMW. It looked great in practice, and it may be that they were hiding a little bit, keeping their powder dry a little bit there. As you see Castelli, another one of our championship protagonists. We're actually just going to quickly switch over on our standings here, which I appreciate you guys can't see on screen, but I'll talk you through it. But yeah, as I said, Castelli in P4. We've got Ellis up into P3 in the Lamborghini. Again, another interesting car. This came into the in the 2023. I think the back end of 2023. This car became available, and had a kind of short spell in the sun, and then has kind of fallen out of favour with a lot of drivers. But it is a fabulous looking car, very aggressive styling, and of course sounds fantastic. Again, another bit of a Marmite car. Some people really love how this and the Audi feel. If you can make it work, it can be really, really fast, but it is a bit of a challenge sometimes. Down to Palmer in the other BMW that's looking quick, number 27. And again, the championship protagonist obviously had a win in round number 1, but only a 7th place in round 2, which is currently not being included. But yeah, the BMW is an interesting car. Like I say, a little bit long in the tooth now for the era of Evos and all of these sort of cars coming in, and kind of more advanced packages coming along. As, we've actually missed a couple of cars come across, the number 19 and the number 399 McLaren. So as I said before, and Roberts takes back that pole position by a couple of tenths, and we see a Mustang up there as well. So good selection of cars. We've got top 5 all in different makes at the moment, so good balance of performance across the board there. But there's a lot of McLarens in that kind of top 10 zone. Definitely showing that in the pro class, maybe with slightly more aggressive setups and a bit more confidence, definitely showing that they've got the pace at the moment, with 4 McLarens in the top 8. But I do, as I was just about to say, let's drop down, because actually we do want to make a very quick special mention. We do have one Lexus in the field. I believe somewhere we have a Honda in the field as well, but they haven't come out of the pits yet. It's always nice to see these slightly more left field car choices. Obviously there was a big balance of performance and kind of tyre shake-up about a year ago now, and that really made it possible for some of these older models to kind of get back into the series. And the Lexus and the Nissan also was kind of revitalised for a little bit. Some people really taking them on. So it is great to see the Lexus, and like I say, it's not out on track now, but there is also one Honda in the field, and we do like to see kind of those left field choices which people like to push. And again, somewhere there's an Audi. It's going to pop into view there. Nice job there, Mr. Cameraman. Again, Audi's a bit of a strange choice. Not everyone likes the Audi, but you can't deny it has a great sound. And again, another car which, when it got introduced into the field in 23, was very popular for a little bit, but has kind of lost its popularity as newer and shinier toys have come in. That is unfortunate, Rivadere. I'm not quite sure what car number you're in. So we're finding out from Tim, he only actually had 80% of his braking power is available. So hopefully that can be fixed in the pits before the race. If not, that is going to be a challenge into T1. And with all those cars around, it's going to be good for everyone to be aware of that. That there are some mechanical troubles. We may see the Ferrari into the pits quite early on in the AM class. We're going to jump forward now, and we have seen again. It is looking like a battle between Garrett and Roberts at the top. So we're going to jump forward to our top of the grid. Good to hear that the Ferrari's back up and running, Tim. That's good. So this is going to be Garrett's second to last lap. So we're going to ride on board. No, we're not. Let's just see if we can get there in time. Bear with me, everybody. We are almost there. Our current pole sitter. There we go. Go on board. Nice exit there in the BMW. Beautiful line. So taking lots of curb on the way in, rides the curbs nicely in the BMW. It really does give confidence to the driver. As we head into the complex. Over that inside of that curb to be able to open up. Right-hander as we head up towards the Fearsome Druids corner. So all about spotting that braking at the Sunoco board. Double fuels are available. There's a big cloud of dust there, and will that Ferrari make sure they stay out of the way? That is the number 29 of Castelli just up ahead. And we have a little bit of a spike there. Just glance on that. It is a 2/10 improvement, and that is going to be currently pole position. Let's see if we can get back to Roberts. I do apologise all. Will Roberts be able to respond? It's their last lap. Will we see the McLaren out on top? Right on board. As we head down towards the hairpin, it's the second gear corner in the McLaren. Build that turbo torque in. We head down towards the first of the two chicane complexes again. Jump that curb, get the power on as nice as possible. Again, another 2/10 improvement looking like here. Can we see a battle here for the pole position? It's going to be close. Needs to find about half a tenth. No, that's not quite a perfect line. At least it looks from this angle. Lost a little bit of confidence, and we have lost a tenth there. Not the best of exits. It's going to have to be a really big final sector here. Throw it into Druids and see what happens. Nothing really to lose at this point. Down to 4th, actually quite a lot to lose. Wow, we've had a lot of improvements. We'll jump back to the main board in a minute. Needs a lot of time to be found here, and it's not going to be quite there. Not a great final sector. Jump back to anyone that we can see, and it is Garrett again improving by another 2/10, so a dominant pole position there it looks like for the BMW driver. It's Freeman in the number 40, Ellis in the number 69, now back down to Roberts, Castelli in 5th, and Palmer in 7th, our championship leader, or co-leader with Castelli. I think it's one point difference actually, I misspeak. I think a pole position is the difference there. Top 10 down, so Hedema in the number 19, and Kohler in the Porsche, the number 31. So, a couple of talking points there I think for everyone. Just going to see if we can get ourselves back to the outdoor camera. There we go, nice. So, obviously class pole, big difference actually. So we'd seen what we thought a little bit of a tighter spread actually for the gap between the AMs and the pros, but it's going to be 1.5 second delta between the top of pro and the start of AM. Obviously with Cash in the 704 as our AM pole sitter, congratulations to them. And like I said before, it is Garrett in the 116 BMW who's going to be taking the flag for the pros. And then obviously we'll have Freeman, Ellis and Roberts chasing after them. And in the AM class, like I say, it's going to be Cash, Rushton, Donkin in the top 3 for AM. Postel in the 68 Ferrari, just falling behind those top of the AM class drivers. And we'll be trying to get through them probably quite quickly to get back on the back of the pro class. And like I say, no time set by Hay, Naisbitt, Ralofs and Gigolo. Obviously with such a big grid, there's going to be a few graphical misdemeanors, but that's okay. So like I said before, we're just going to drop over to the timetables. We'll be able to see actually at that point a little bit of the balance of performance. So there's a little bit of a handicap obviously with the custom BOP put on for this series, and it's looking like I said that it's not too many big numbers, but definitely the Ferraris have got a little bit more weight out and the Huracan's got a little bit more weight in. So that may have, like I say, a little bit of an impact. You can see actually that the Mustang has got a lot of weight in. No, sorry, not the Mustang, sorry, the Aston. I'm talking absolute rubbish. The Aston's got quite a lot of weight in it. Obviously those great brakes on the Aston on a track like this where there's quite a lot of slow corners in places and a lot of really important rotations required. If you can get on those brakes a little bit later, rotate the car a bit better, sometimes that can help. That's why you're seeing quite a lot of weight for those Aston Martins. But a little bit of weight out for some of the old favourites. And of course the mighty Lexus I think takes the cake for the most number of kilos out for any car. Let's just check with the Honda. Yes indeed, it is the venerable Lexus with 32 kilos of ballast out. So we've got 3 minutes till the start. As I said before, this is going to be a 1 hour race. It has got a pit window, so 1 required pit stop, and it's going to be quite interesting to see who goes early. Obviously with such a big field you may see some of those kind of back end of the top 10 drivers trying to either go long or try and get that undercut and take that pit stop as soon as possible, get out into that clean air where you can push hard and maybe jump some of those cars going longer. Alternatively, could be the opposite, and you could actually see that some of those leaders, buoyed by the fact that they've got such a great qualifying position, put in a bit more fuel, go longer, hold up those behind, and then have that sprint finish at the end. Well, we see people, you know, taking that approach. As always, an hour race is just on that window with tyres of getting a little bit less comfortable. Not particularly badly warm, but they'll start to scrub off the best of those tyres after probably 10-15 minutes, and then it's going to be about managing those through to the pit stop, and then, like I say, moving forward, seeing who wants to try and take those longer. Maybe, like I say, a bit more fuel in the car and taking it a bit easier with those low track temperatures. Only 17 degrees track temp going into the race today. So it's going to be, looks like it's going to be also completely unbeholden to weather. We're going to have a dry, cloudy race. No threat of rain at this point. That really would throw a spanner into the works, but also pretty low wind conditions at 4 kilometers per hour. Not really going to have a massive, dramatic impact on the drivers themselves, but like I say, still worth noting. It might cause a little bit of crosswind unbalance. And obviously we'll get the full single file drawn out queue of 43 cars, which is going to look pretty impressive. Obviously a great turnout today at the at Alton Park, but it's going to be interesting seeing how drivers handle, like I say, that potential traffic. Given the lap time delta, it's going to be probably 20 minutes or so into the race maybe that we start seeing potentially some of those stragglers getting lapped, but definitely we'll start seeing some lapping throughout this race, and those leaders are going to have to be careful to make sure that doesn't impact them overall. But looking at the balance so far, it's going to be interesting to see who can make that good start. Obviously, we've seen a strong early performance on tyres for Garrett. I'd be interested to see, like I say, what fuel load some of these cars were running in free practice, if it was all just pure qualifying practice or if someone was holding something in reserve. The names up in that top part of the board aren't particularly unexpected, based off the free practice, so I don't think there's a lot of that, but you never know that someone was holding something in reserve and actually might jump up the grid a little bit during the race. So we've got 20 seconds till the start of the formation lap. We're just going to take a very quick break before the start of the formation.
10 seconds.
So it is Garrett leading them away from the grid. It's going to be about keeping the temperature in those tyres but not taking too much kind of life out of them from scrubbing. And of course everyone's going to have to have taken into account the full formation lap instead of the short formation lap option when it comes to their fuel loads and their fuel characteristics. But ahead of the start of the race, let's go and run through the field on board. So we're going to start with Roberts there in the 94 McLaren. Red band there in the number 17, down in 27th position. Kind of near the top half of that AM grid. Obviously it's looking like it's about P20 and down is where your AMs are going to be starting, and then kind of P21, P20 and above is going to be the majority of the pro field. Spoken throughout this, a lot of strong showings from McLarens tonight, but a couple of great performances from some of the other cars, especially the AM cars. We talked about the Aston Martins looking very good in qualifying. Are they going to be able to carry that pace and speed into the race? Is the tyre wear going to be okay here? It is a bit of a rear limited circuit more than a front limited circuit with these high traction zones. So potentially the Aston Martin with its front engine will actually do quite well throughout the course of this race. As we see a car off on the formation lap. Quite sure who that was. We're going to skip through, see if we can find who that was. The 242 Honda unfortunately hasn't made it out of the grid, onto the grid. So unfortunately we aren't going to see the Honda today. Let's see if we can find who that Mustang that was off. Unfortunately we aren't going to be able to find that. Jump back up towards the top of the grid. The number 27 of Palmer, obviously second in the championship at the moment, just getting themselves back into the right position on track will be Nate going around the outside in the 427. As we get ready, lining up now in 2x2. Number 11 that is stopped on the exit of the first corner. We'll jump to the front of the grid. Here we go. Waiting on the green flag, side by side, and we are green. Great start there by the McLaren on the outside, actually. Just challenging on the exit, not going to be able to quite make it as we see the number 94, and we've got a spin at the back of the pro field. Does everyone just about make it through? No, we've got the 215 turn, the number 1 Lexus is off as well. Bit of chaos there into the back of the field. And it is a big jump up the field there for Rushton. As we'll jump out of this view just so we can get a bit more control, find out who's fallen down the order. It is a little bit of chaos at the moment on the scoreboard, so we'll just give it time as we see another big spin for, I think that is Castelli. Yes, it is Castelli. Our championship leader is round on lap 1. Potentially just went a little bit wide. We've got another car in the wall of the BMW there. And it is, so it was the number 11 that retired at the start of the race. Garrett still leads from Freeman, Ellis. Castelli is round the wrong way. Roberts survived the trip across the grass. Nate is into 6th. We have got Griffith up to 7th. Hederman in 8th. Carr up into the top 10 in the Porsche. I think there's a drop of a position or 2 for... actually no, I think it's Rogers is where they start. Actually come up from where they started. Makes a mistake there as Langley now gets down the inside on the run up towards. That isn't going to be close enough. Miguel quickly, and then we've got, like I say, Rushton up a couple of positions from their starting spot overall, but taking the lead in AM and putting a couple of pro cars in the way. Then we've got Cash up, AM leader, AM pole sitter, down to 2nd. Obviously, I think there was a little bit of avoiding action required from the AM class of the back of the pros, which just disturbed us. We've got more dust than someone else is off at the... Just trying to find who that is who is off. Another car off in the background. And we've got the number 46 round at the exit of the hairpin. Makes contact with the wall, but probably will be okay to continue without a pit stop at this point. Obviously the pit window won't start for now. That is an unfortunate little incident there. Drops a few positions down. Drop back up to the front just for a moment in the board just to see if there's any changes. Not overall. But one of the cars I do want to go and see is where is... There we go, the window was open. So Castelli, after that mistake at the start, has dropped all the way down to 37th overall. That'll be about P25 in class. But really unfortunate there for Castelli, who was probably going into this race hoping for another top 5 finish. But we're going to jump up to... Oh no, then... Actually, a well-timed little kind of battle here between the incredibly fast in a straight line Lexus. And this is why this car sticks around, because people enjoy the kind of top speed benefit you get. A nice move down the inside there from the number 1 car. They put themselves, obviously, not actually up a position overall, but not up a position in class, but up a position overall, and that always feels good. Ferrari of McNamee obviously got carrying that all with damage and is going to have an impact when it comes to straight line speed. So then Bailiff, who is chasing down Bola, number 7 McLaren. Just already a little bit of a kind of separation here in the lower parts of the grid. We're going to jump back up to the top kind of top 5 battle, as we see Garrett is pulling away from Freeman. Ellis, Roberts, who has got Palmer. Roberts, who's all over the back of Ellis and actually gets down the inside at the final corner. Lovely move there, forcing him out onto that kind of runoff area, outside curbing where you just can't get the traction down. It's really bumpy, and a lovely move from Roberts there up into P3. Can they chase down Freeman now for the P2? Maybe move forward into Garrett's P1. A nice 1.5 second gap though for Garrett at this point, managing that. And Ellis seems to be under kind of more threat and takes a wide line through the Cascades, possibly trying to set up a good exit, but doesn't get the nose in. And this gives Palmer a great chance as a run. Not quite enough to be able to show a nose into what is a incredibly fast corner, and not one that you can really push any sort of risky move there. You kind of really have had to got the position down the inside by that point. So rebuffs that attempt now, the number 69 car. And Griffith there just hanging on to the back of this battle. Just going to be waiting to see if any mistakes do occur. As we head down now into the Knickerbrook section for the fourth time of asking. Got ahead of just ahead of Nate in the first of the Mustangs. Kind of almost synthwave colours, pink and blue, on the black base of this Mustang, which is quite a cool looking livery, I will say. I do quite like that, and I do like the fact it's got 427 on it. Obviously, harking back to eras of Shelby 427s. And we've got the number 31 of Kohler, the first of the Porsches. A couple more Mustangs just back. So we're going to jump back forward now with our AM race leader. A little bit of a gap to the pro car behind, about a 1.6 second lead overall to Cash in the other Aston Martin. Duffy, who was tipped as a pre-race favourite in the AM class, just hanging on in fourth position behind the pro number 68 car of Postel. And a 36-second stop and go for the 420 car. That's really unfortunate for a car already near the back. I'm guessing speeding in the pit lane will be the cause of that. And that will be basically race done there. The number 99 car also having had some maladies at the early part of the race. Obviously a pro car down in 39th position is not what they want. The number 11 never got going, and nor did the Honda number 242, which is now officially retired from the race. We jump back up to the leaders. A couple of seconds now between Garrett and Freeman, so Garrett really starting to stretch away at the front. And it may be, like I say, will we see some difference in fuel load, which is enabling this kind of dash at the start? From Roberts as well, not quite making inroads yet. But 2.8 seconds is a jaunt at the moment for Garrett in the 116. There's a couple of McLarens chasing each other. And Ellis seems to have got things back under control a bit more. A little bit of an unfortunate kind of passage, really having been the drop them out of the podium positions, but if they can just gather it back up and see if they can make an attack a little bit later. As Roberts now right on the back of Freeman. Great run there through the fast sections of the track. Obviously maybe have slightly different downforce levels, or it could have been a little mistake, but we're going to stick with this battle for now. The battle for P2 overall, and of course in the pro class. As I said earlier, this is a very difficult track to try and force an overtake on. You've got to really get that kind of exit run first to be able to get out and kind of have that chance to make a move into the braking zones. It's not a lot of long straights, so it's all about those exits. We talked about the fact that this circuit is a bit rear limited as we get further into the stint. Despite these fast corners, at least in my experience, it really does come down to those slow exits really burning up those rears. Obviously lower track temperatures than potentially could be possible. Could be pushing that a little bit more towards a front limiting track where you may get a little bit of graining on the front tyres, and that could push things away. And you can see actually there Freeman got a terrible run through turn 1 heading down towards Cascades, and this is going to be Roberts' chance on the outside. They're not going to have the traction there necessarily, but they do use just a little bit of the banking of that corner to run it around the outside, and a lovely move there by Roberts, opportunistic, and has the whole of the straight to use that better run through, hold the position, and now they can charge after our race leader in Garrett. Garrett, of course, now got that 4-second lead, so a nice big gap. And it could be that, like I say, Freeman's even running a higher fuel load at this point, or just really just put in an absolute stonking qualifying lap and is now falling back a little bit towards their more natural position. But time will tell if that's the case. Ellis has dropped a little bit further off of this group as well, kind of isolating themselves in the 4th position, with Palmer still there. And still could potentially make a charge at some point, but we're going to drop back now to the Porsche of Kohler, now with Mustangs galore behind them. 3 Mustangs within 2 seconds behind, and Kohler, as we see Nate running over those curbs there, getting a big old bounce. It's a triple Mustang sandwich. Langley there in potentially, I'm guessing, a team-affiliated car, looking at the inverted paint scheme there, potentially, of Nate's car. With Rogers in between. Pink Mustang sandwich. All chasing after the 911. And I will admit, I do always find it funny where they put the auxiliary lights on these cars, because it does look like the Porsche there has basically got lights in its mouth, which does make for a slightly comical image. Two incredibly different cars as well, I would say. The kind of nimble, nicely balanced classic European sports car. Oh, as we see, potentially a little bit of contact there between Kolar and Nate, and that is going to give Nate the position. I can't tell for sure if there was a little bit of contact, but it did look like, and Kolar is now having a little shape up for a move, but that has pushed them right down. We see more contact there between the 404 and the 512. The 404 made a nice, I'm guessing quite a nice move, but now a little bit of contact there, and actually, yes, you do see Nate giving back a whole bunch of positions. Is there a problem there for the 427? Dropped back quite a few places there, and that has lost them loads of track position. So we head back up towards the 402, the 404, which is charging now forwards. Again, almost looked like there was some more contact between the Porsche and the Mustang. But definitely some interesting shenanigans going on there between those couple of Mustangs, with the back end of that Porsche. Cheers, Donald. Thanks for the information about the team affiliations. As we see a drive-through for the 427, so that's interesting. Having received the drive-through, I don't know if that was, I'm guessing it was for track limits, as we see someone in the wall. It is Kolar in the number 31 Porsche. Pushed it a little bit too hard, and that is a huge amount of damage. That's a real shame for a car that was really kind of being a plucky underdog. They're going to have to try and recover that car and then take it into the pits. Just about nipping out there and being able to get rolling, but that is basically their day done, or their hopes of a top 10 or 20 finish. There is broken steering rod there. That is going to be a dangerous car to rejoin, and everyone's going to have to take care getting that car back to the pits. You can see the absolute mess that the number 31 has become. Real shame, a car that was looking pretty strong actually, and everyone's going to have to be careful. Hopefully they get those hazard lights on as they run straight across the track there. But we're going to jump back ahead just to see how our leaders are getting on. And it is Roberts just closing the gap a little bit as we start lap 10. But it's still about 4 seconds between these two cars. The NVIDIA sponsored McLaren chasing down the race leader again, still just closing in a little bit, and Freeman sticking about, but very much kind of coming adrift from Roberts. And actually Ellis starting to bring that gap down a little bit, maybe trying to charge forward back onto the podium. It's a little bit of gap now forming between the top 5, who are pretty kind of that lead battle. Obviously Garrett got away at the start, but it does look like potentially the McLarens, I keep making that mistake, I do apologise ladies and gentlemen who are watching. The McLarens are starting to close back in potentially, and it could be that, like I say, the BMW may not be being so kind to its tyres. After all those issues, Rushton now up to P12 overall, still leading in the AM class by a slim margin from Cash, a couple of positions down overall, but only about a second and a half down between Cash and Rushton, with Ostel having made a bit of a mistake there. Bouncy looking Aston Martin there. behind Cash is Duncan in the Mustang. Half a second behind. Actually, it's only a very small gap there between these cars. Interested to see if Cash decides to try and make a move. A bit too far back. Will they try and put some pressure on? No, they're going to make a mistake themselves, and now it's Duncan with the run as we head down towards the Cascades. Doesn't quite have the confidence to try around the outside, but Cash takes themselves off the racing line. A big mistake. Losing a lot of time as we run down towards into Island Corner. Not quite able to make it a pass, and this is what I mean. Other tracks, if you make that sort of error, there's the width of the track. You see a slight slow Duffy there through that. It may have just been a trick of the camera, but it did look like Duffy was running a little bit slowly. Just going to have a check back and see if the number 31 has made it back to the pits, or if they've had to retire. I think 31 has had to retire. That's a real shame after such a great start. We've already lost 7 cars from this race. Through incidents. 31 was very badly damaged. It's going to be very difficult to get that car back to the pits. So we're going to move forward in the pack, and we're going to take a look back at the Mustangs, who were having a bit of a scrap earlier on. Langley has pulled a couple of seconds away, but is still 5 seconds off the McLaren of Hetema, that is in the number 19 car. So really kind of establishing themselves inside that top 10 now with the P8. Will they try and move forward, or are they going to try and settle in until at least the pit stop phase to try and get maybe a jump on those cars ahead? There's still a great kind of charge through the field there for Langley. As we head through for the 12th time of asking Knickerbrook Corner. Yeah, it's a great looking car, that Mustang. I think they've done a fabulous job in keeping those design cues when turning it from the road car into the race car. That long swooping back with the swan neck style spoiler does really evoke that kind of feeling of coupe, big coupe style race car, a little bit oversized and particularly kind of bulky looking machine. But actually, you put it next to the Porsche or you know, those cars you think of being smaller, and actually it's not that big. It's not like the famous kind of BMW M6 we had in the last kind of generation of these cars, which did look huge, and obviously the Boakley everyone is so fond of. As we see, actually a change for the P3. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for missing that on screen. It looks like Freeman's having an absolute mare. Palmer all over the back of them as they run up towards the triple apex kind of section there, going down back towards the Knickerbrook section. Now, can there be a good exit here for Palmer? Freeman looks like they've just got out of shape somewhere, and that's allowed Ellis through back onto the podium that they lost earlier on in the race. And they will be wanting to hold on to that, get those good points, keep themselves in the fight there. Obviously going to be losing a couple of points to Roberts in the championship. Ellis is currently on a level with Roberts in the championship, with them both having second places. So that will start to decide that position between those two drivers. Quite yet able to find a way through, still with that P5. And we'll keep them well and truly kind of in the battle for the top spots. They'll drop a couple of positions. I think it will be Roberts currently who will be moving forward into the top of the standings. As Garrett is down in 12th at the moment in the standings after a P9 finish and a P13 that currently isn't being counted. So this P1 finish actually could vault them quite a long way up the standings, as we're about coming up to half distance in about 8 minutes time. We'll start to see if people are on symmetrical strategies, if people are doing some sort of offset. We haven't seen too many pit stops yet from drivers who didn't need them, but we have seen that our AM class leader has been into the pits and made their one and only stop, which is certainly an interesting strategy and may explain why they were doing so well early on when it came to pace, but now they've had to drop back down. They weren't carrying as much fuel, or they felt like they were potentially getting held up, but I don't remember Rushton really being in a position where they were being held up, so this is an interesting strategy call from Rushton to pit early and put themselves what I feel like is now in more traffic. So we'll see how that one works out for the AM class driver, but that does promote Cash back up into P1, but they are still behind Austell. Potentially could be a little bit quicker with that clean air, but it's hard to tell at the moment. Duffy has spent the whole race tucked up behind Postel, obviously split between the two classes. It'll be interesting to see if they can find a way past Postel, or if they're happy to just sit there and wait for the pit stops to make things happen. Actually, I've just missed this as well, I do apologise, but Freeman has dropped down to 6th position, so I'm guessing there's been an off there. I was just checking the positions, and yes, you can see Palmer has moved into 4th. I do apologise for missing that, ladies and gentlemen. It's the only downside of such a big grid. It's fantastic for competition, but it does mean it's quite tricky sometimes to catch all of the drama as it's occurring. But that does move them right down into P6. Still a good just trying to find Freeman in the standings currently. Freeman hasn't raced yet, so that's why I couldn't find them yet, because they're down in the bottom half of the pro standings. So this is a great start to their season, a P6 in such a competitive field. Definitely making the most of what looks to be a particularly competitive McLaren package today. And the gap between the leaders is coming down. Down to 2.8 seconds now between Roberts and Garrett. That is going to be helping, but we are starting to see that traffic that we talked about earlier. I said it'd be about 20 minutes into the race. It's a little bit longer than that, but we are starting to see some traffic, blue flags. And it's our friend Tim, who's managed to get that Ferrari back up and running after the Malmedies in qualifying, but now has got the number 94 right up behind them. Are they going to cede position? Yes, they are, making that easy for our P2 overall. That does allow the gap though to extend a little bit back out to 3.1 seconds. Still come down. Garrett is potentially struggling a little bit more at this point in the race as we see a car backwards off the grid. That's the 215. That was doing pretty well in the AM class categories, actually. What should be happening? Actually, they were doing quite well in qualifying, but they have had some Malmedies in the race. Talking of cars that have had Malmedies, you can see the number 4 has had a big tag from someone at some point with big scrapings down the front and the back of that car. But still doing well in the P25. They do need to come into pits, and that's why they are ahead of cars like Rushton and Donkin now, who has made it through 3 seconds behind Rushton. So that early pit stop seems to be working out for Rushton at the moment. But it's going to be interesting to see how gap shape up between the 95 and the 704. When the 704 decides to pit. A lot of cars still to pit. Well, of course, we are less than halfway through this race, so please stick with us as we get to the tasty bit of the... As we see Freeman now into the pits. They are dropping down. They're going to actually find themselves coming out in a really nice bit of clean air. So that's a great call there from the number 40 crew. Brings the 40 car back out into clean air, and they can really start to hit the ground running with a big start, a big patch of clean air. Hit those fresh tyres. That's what I was looking for. Hard and push forward to see if they can get themselves into a better position. Interesting. So Palmer has now got the fastest lap of the race, and we see P2 into the pits. So again, another car that was slightly at less than half tanks. Going to stick on board on the way into the pit lane. A very clean stop though for the 94 on the way in. So when they come back out, we'll see how many fuel tires they took. We've got Garrett now on the 18th lap, just dealing with some traffic there. It's dropping down to P5, still in the pits at the moment. Ellis a couple of seconds behind Palmer, with a lapped car between them. But a nice little gap now for Garrett, back to 9 seconds. I want to keep that one a little bit balance, but Roberts drops down to the P12, so that's where we're looking in terms of lap time delta. So our race leader is just coming up towards Druids, and our car that was 3 seconds behind them before the pit stops is just coming down towards Island. So that's going to be our kind of gap we're looking for. So if we start seeing on the mini map, just something, a little game for you watching at home. So if we start seeing... Oh, no, we've seen... I think Garrett is in the pits. It is, Garrett is into the pits, so they've reacted immediately to make sure that they don't get undercut. I was actually going to say the game we could play at home, chaps, would be watching to see if that gap was going to change, but it's not, and it's Palmer in the other BMW taking the lead. Will this be a car that's going to be pushing forwards to see if they can make a big difference in terms of getting an overcut? You know, the tyre wear isn't going to be that high in my personal opinion, given the low track temperature, only 16 degrees. Wind directions changed slightly from the start of the race, but not significantly, I don't think. We're up into P3. They're having a great little run there. Obviously they were in the kind of middle part of the top 10, but with the pit stops they've moved up a little bit, and Garrett is still ahead of Roberts, who has had a problem, it looks like. Or they didn't. Oh, actually no, I think Roberts has taken tyres and Garrett didn't. Or maybe they did. No, I may be talking absolute godswine. I think that's just the gap, as it's worked out with the traffic. So it looks like Garrett has actually played a little bit of a blinder there. They seem to have opened up their gap. It's sometimes hard to tell with the mini-map gaps, but yeah, it does look like Roberts a little bit further ahead than they were before. Castelli there in 14th, still to pit after their early race dramas, but still fighting back pretty well. They'll fall back behind quite a few of these cars, but still got an opportunity potentially for somewhere in the top 25. On the subject of cars that are doing pretty well, we're going to have a check to see our AM race leader is into the pits. I was hoping to catch this one. Do we have the... So the AM class is now being led by Duffy. But we're going to take a look at Cash versus Rushton. That's the gap we're looking for. So Rushton is just coming up out of Nickbrook. So that's what we're looking for in terms of the gap. We'll come back to that in just a minute. It is Ellis now leading. We have seen Palmer hit the pits, come back up and out ahead of Roberts. So here we go, here's a battle. Palmer making that overcut work by not being in the traffic, and this is what we were kind of talking about earlier, but they make a bit of a mistake there, possibly caught out by the slow BMW, the number 3, and they're going to have lost that position. Are they going to fight it into Britain's? No, they are going to just stick behind it, but still a great bit of strategy there by Palmer. He's going to have the fresher tyres, remember, at the end of the race, not by a significant margin, but maybe a little bit. That may give them a chance to fight Palmer. But Ellis is now the car which is really potentially going to make this strategy work. Obviously they had a bit of a gap back to Roberts, but Roberts had the issue. As we're just going to have a little look back to see if we can find Cash. So there's Cash back out on circuit. And Rushton has definitively lost out there with that early pit stop. And I said that that might happen. Sometimes it's all about being on that low fuel as long as possible. With only half an hour on the tyres, sometimes burning that fuel off, you can keep quick and you can stay out of traffic. And I said it right at the start of the broadcast, for those of you who were watching at that point, as we see the number 94 of Roberts is off. Big damage for one of our race contenders. Big damage for the 94. Battle with Palmer, of course. I wonder if there was some contact between those two. Obviously, we saw Roberts passed. They are going to continue despite the damage. As we see, who was that just pitting in the Aston Martin? Not quite sure, but that is going to be catastrophic for Roberts' pace and their race. They're going to still have some aero, but it's going to be significantly compromised, and that's going to really help our good friend Garrett out, obviously leader of all the cars which have stopped. And we've only got 4 cars in the top 10 that are yet to pit, so those guys are hanging it out. As Ellis, as I speak, and Hettemer come in, they're going to have a short blast on the next set of tyres. Garrett will be the car that is coming through, and the number 94 has had to retire the car back to the pits. Too much damage. They're going to have to get that fixed. A real shame for Roberts. It's going to help out some of our drivers, though, who were pushing themselves potentially into the kind of outside their position they were at the start. And we see another car off at the... Is that the number 4? I'm just going to have a little look down here, see who's running slow. It's the 512 leading the race as well, who is Rogers. We haven't talked about Rogers at all this race, so I do apologise. Let's talk about you now. So Rogers in the 512 Mustang, doing a quietly great job there. Obviously cycling through to the front because they haven't pitted yet. And just having a quick look at the leaderboard. And struggling massively to find Rogers on the lead. Stuart Rogers, there he is, in the 512, he's 7th. Best result so far of a 5th, and if he carries this on, it looks like he might get another top 10. Obviously we saw Rogers having a little bit of a battle earlier on, actually. I remember now with the 427 on the 402, came out of being the sandwich. Kind of okay, lost in position to the 402, but gained one on the 427 when they had a drive-through. So just a quietly good race there from the 512, the 227. While still, this was the car which was battling with our AM class leader for a lot of the race. You can kind of see where the gaps are forming there. And they're coming into the pits this time, so there's going to be Garrett now cycling themselves back up to P2 with a nice 8-second lead over the BMW of Palmer with Ellis in P3. So Palmer really did make that strategy work. Fantastic job there by Palmer. Absolutely the net winner in strategy. Get themselves up into a net P2. And really, in some ways, I could say probably our driver for the race at the moment. We've seen another car off. That is the 161. Let's see who that is. It's Tim! Oh no! I wonder if that brake problem's come back for poor old Tim. The pink Ferrari. Oh, it's another Ferrari. What a damage on it. Oh dear. That's the 401 of Harris, who's taken a little bit of a rough time of things as well. Some of our Amcast cars having a bit of a scrappy day. That's what being an Am's about. Getting good at it, understanding it. We've got the number 3 that's retired to the pits. We saw this car having a bit of drama at points through the race. Nothing big, but just a little bit. But it is Garrett now who's going to be more than likely the car that's doing the easy ride home. 23 minutes left. Done the pit stop. All the hard bites are done. It's just managing the traffic, managing the gap as we see the 227 round of Austell. They've just come out of the pits. What has happened to Austell? Stuck and stalled on the exit of the Cascade, or halfway through the Cascades. So we'll have to see what happened to Austell, but that is a real shame for a car that was going really well, retiring back to the pits. What a shame. They were doing a really good job earlier on today. As we see Rogers now into the pits, so that gives Garrett back the lead. Palmer into P3, Ellis into net P3. Freeman bouncing back up inside the top 5. Griffith will take that 5th position shortly, and Hetmer right up behind. So those McLarens, we talked about them all the way through. A really strong package, not quite at the top, but definitively looking great as a kind of, you're going to be quick in a McLaren here. It's not a bad choice option. Here's a bit of a gap, obviously, for Rogers back down. We'll see where he shakes out in the pro class, but it's looking like he's going to be in that top 10 still. And obviously we've got Cash, Duffy, both ahead of Rushton, who's really, I think, the strategy net loser in the AM class, dropping 2 positions in class, but staying ahead of Postel. So something like Cash has really been the winner there. Obviously they were behind Postel for most of that first stint. We talked about that a few times, and just waiting there patiently. Had a load of fuel in the car, made it happen once they got the gap, and turned that back into a net P1 in the AM class. Duffy, we talked about throughout the whole race, looked like they were going to be really quick in the AM class. Didn't quite put it together in qualifying, and they've been fighting it back ever since. That number 76 McLaren actually is now going to be a bit of a nuisance for them, because if they had a straight shot at Cash, 20 minutes left, they might fancy their chances, but with a completely uninterested party between them, that's going to be more difficult. But Cash now in a legitimate P9 overall. Great drive. Obviously, remember, no one else in the pro class, no one in the M class was in the top 20 cars at the start of this race. That shows you the attrition rate in the pro class. They've been pushing hard, they're fast, but a lot more mistakes happen in that pro class because people are just pushing harder. Cars like Castelli, we saw obviously on that first lap facing the wrong way round in the Ferrari, and they've been pushing their way back inside the top 20. So I was a little bit out of my estimate, inside the top 15 potentially if they can get past Hay. And that's still a pretty good recovery. Obviously we've seen some really heavy hitters drop down the field. Roberts probably being the biggest of those. They have recovered back onto the grid, but they're going to be several laps down now after the damage repair required. The number 1 Lexus unfortunately retiring. Austell also retiring in the 227. So I think our last runner is Samano. Then it is... Oh no, we've got Kitos also off in the number 4 car. From the exit of Nickelbrook. Not quite sure what's happened there. Is it another car that's out of fuel? No idea, but that car's going nowhere. The 317 we were just looking at was running okay, and and the 3rd place car, Ellis, has dropped it, and they've lost a load of positions. We caught that just by chance, but that is a really unfortunate spin for the car that was doing so well, had fought so hard back into P3, and has thrown it all away basically. Langley now into P6, Hetmer P4, Griffith P3, and Freeman, the car who was just minding their own business for a lot of this race, and we said they fought a little bit but didn't fight too hard. They're a very sensible approach. He's got themselves up into P3. Palmer's still 8 seconds behind Garrett, so that gap is stable with the two BMWs. It's going to be likely at this point above BMW 1, 2, and then it's going to be McLaren 3, 4 and 5. Langley the first of the Fords. LS though will be kicking themselves. They were doing a fantastic job in that Lamborghini. It's a real shame that they've had that error, because in many ways they had been absolutely on it with respect to strategy and keeping their head down and pushing hard. Palmer obviously is our current driver of the day when it comes to strategy. I think really put themselves in a great position for a podium even before Roberts' mistake. As we see Duffy now into the lead as well in the AM class, so there must have been some sort of error there for Cash, because they had a little bit of a comfortable gap. Yeah, because they dropped behind quickly. I wonder if they got caught up in another car's incident, and that's why they dropped back. I'm trying to see if there's any other cars that we know have had an incident near them, but it doesn't look like there is. The 69 is too far ahead, so it can't have been that incident. The 311 also had an incident at the same corner, but that was all sorted out before these cars got there. So it is definitively going to be kind of probably driver error there, and they're going to be kicking themselves. Obviously had the pole, had a bad start, fought hard, and really was the AM class winner on strategy, but it seems to have had an error or thrown it, caught up in traffic. And Duffy now in the McLaren is going to be taking ahead, kind of, I think, trying to keep themselves focused by staying close to Quigley. There's no real gain to pushing hard at this point. It's all just going to be for pride, as we see the 94 again having an issue. What has happened to the 94 Roberts, a car that was looking so strong in qualifying and practice? Had another mistake there. As always, it's worth keeping in the points and keeping it going. Down 26th. That's already 4 places higher than they were at one point earlier on in this stint. So as Garrett heads down towards the Cascades for the 28th time of asking. He's just about taking it easy at this point. Don't push it too hard. Keep everything inside the green zone. And keep those pressures where you need them. Keep those tyres from overheating. And just comfortable driving on the way home. You've got a 10-second gap, pretty much, to Palmer, who's going to now have to drive pretty hard if they want to try and take this race win away. But we've got Langley now up into P4, so a little bit of a issue there for one of our McLarens. And now Duffy is into P9, so really all sorts of chaos going on actually at the moment in this part of the race. Hedema has dropped down to P5, Ellis obviously still in the P6, Rogers in P7, as we see another car off in the gravel. That is Timmy, I think, in the Ferrari. Yep, that's the pink Ferrari. Seen that a few times today. Rushton might be able to get themselves up another place. If they can keep their head down, might be able to catch the number 20 Ferrari ahead. Some more slightly scrappy racing going on here between Cash and Miguel. Trying to work out if this is Miguel moving forward. I think it might be in the number 20 Ferrari. Duffy's starting to stretch away from Cash, but I think that may just be due to Cash's errors more than anything else, because Quigley and Duffy are very similar on pace. As we just take 2 seconds to take a quick break. So as you rejoin us with 15 minutes to go in the third round of the Sim Racing Club Thursday Night GT3 Series here at Oldham Park. We have got Garrett still out in the lead, comfortably just stretching that lead out, slowly nudging it up above 10 seconds now. Palmer has, in my opinion, been our kind of strategy winner of the day, doing a great job in that BMW, bringing home, you know, as we see a car go off in the background there, the number one absolutely looked like it sailed across the dirt there in the background. Freeman has been probably our most consistently just chugging on by driver. Obviously had a little bit of a scrap early on, but since then has just driven their race, done a really good job, I think, of knowing that they haven't got the best car out there today, but keeping out of trouble enough to be able to push themselves towards potential podium. Langley has done a great job, started I think in the bottom half of the top 10, but now has a legitimate shot here if they can find a little bit more pace to get that top 3. But still, a top 5 result would be great for them. Hettemer, it's been a little bit lucky, I think, with respect to being in the top 5 just because of Ellis's mistake, but still hasn't made any real errors themselves. They've done a really great job of kind of moving forward through the race, where others have made mistakes, stuck onto the back of the Mustang, and really kind of held onto that P5 Ellis. Unfortunate, really was making a strong candidate for kind of driver of the day, sort of driving an unfancied Lamborghini, but that error, possibly forced, possibly unforced, it's hard to tell at this point, really kind of scuppered their chance at the podium there, nailed on podium, but it's one of those things that happens. Still going to recover to have good points, and most importantly kind of cement their grip on that top 5 position in the championship. Rogers done a good job in P7 so far, obviously not far off Ellis at this point. If there's any sort of scrapping between Hettemer and Ellis, 5 seconds is not a lot of time to lose to a battle, so we could even see something improving for them. Quickly in P8 has had a completely unremarkable race from what I can tell, very comfortable, had good pace to be consistent. Duffy seems to have just kind of waited for the race to come to them, and really now comfortably into the P1 spot for the AM class. Miguel, again, looks like they might have been one of the cars that got caught out early on in the race, and have just fought themselves back into position. Cash, our pole sitter in AM, a bit unfortunate, I think, with a mysterious error, let's say, that dropped them from what looked like to be a really strong P1. Rushton is probably our big strategy loser, and we said that earlier on. Just, I think, didn't have enough fuel in the car, forced themselves onto an aggressive strategy, got stuck in traffic, never really had a chance back at that P1. I think they were hoping maybe the back end of the race would come to them, but it is looking like they've got the oldest tyres now and they're just not going to be able to make that work for themselves. Postel in the number 68 Ferrari, again, quiet race, nothing's gone wrong for them, and really kind of that just outside the top 10 overall, but I believe will be therefore in 10th place in the Pro class, which is a great result for them. Berger in the other Lamborghini has kind of kept themselves to themselves in this race. He's going to be rewarded with, like I say, just outside those top 10 points for the Pro class. Got Hay in the 21, who I think we saw have a little moment early on in the race, but has kept it pretty clean. The 77 of Kelter, I think was one of the cars that got caught out right at the start of the race, lost a few positions in the opening melee. I believe I remember seeing a pink BMW somewhere. Gabino, again, another quiet race. McNemany, we saw have that damage early on, probably cost themselves a better position, possibly inside the top 3 maybe, because they seem to have recovered pretty well into the AM field, which is a real shame because the 46 car, as they've done a little bit of a trip across the gravel, was looking pretty comfortable on pace-wise. 401 of Harris, we know has had a couple of trips across the gravel, and obviously had that contact earlier on in the race, letting through our top group. Bowler we saw in the number 7 earlier on doing pretty well actually, having a nice comfortable ride inside the top 20 overall, good drive there. Tim unfortunately into the pits finally for that actual scheduled stop. Obviously has been fighting gremlins all race, but is looking to be our kind of last of our cars that hasn't had a huge drama in the race. Bradburn earlier on in the race looked pretty comfortable, but had an error and dropped them back. Ola in the Lexus we saw had a prolonged stop in the pits. Same with Ostel, who's now back up and running, and obviously the big surprise of the race I think has been Roberts having that error down at just before the final corner, which really did scupper their chance of P2, pushing for P1, and then the other cars which have been in the pits for a long time having incidents of their own. But 33 laps in, 8 minutes left of the race pretty much, and Garrett just keeps chugging on by in that BMW, really comfortable. Gap up to 12 seconds now. I think Palmer's probably switched the engine mode down a bit, taking it easy. Got a nice big gap as Langley's now got the car up into P3, which isn't a surprise. We've seen a lot of pace out of this Mustang, and for all our talk about McLaren's being comfortable here and looking fast, it turns out we're going to likely have a top 3 of front engine cars. As I said, this track can be a little bit rear limited, and it may be that the McLarens are just churning up those rear tyres a bit too much, and that's going to be the cause of our issues. We see Timmy there kicking up the dust in the pink Ferrari. LS there all over the back pedal. I think this is going to be probably our most competitive battle to the end of the race in terms of championship position. So we'll stick with this one for now. A little bit of blue flag waving from Freeman there, and a little bit of a hold up potentially for the number 19. Will that give the number 69 a run? Yes and no. If this track had a straight long enough, that would have been, but unfortunately it isn't going to quite work. A little bit of a half dive into the hairpin, just to see if they can force a small error, a locked brake, something like that potentially, but nothing doing there. And it's going to be Ellis still trying to find a way back into the top 5 after their mistake, with 6 minutes left. So we've got 4 laps remaining for our race leader, as they're just coming up to the start finish line now. And a drive through for number 69 Ellis. Their race has just gone from bad to worse. No longer going to be fighting for that top 5. Are they going to bail into the pits straight away? That is going to drop them well down the order, as we see Duffy has made a mistake in the AM class. We were so busy talking about the Pro class competitive picture, we didn't spot that Duffy has dropped it and put Cash back up into P1 and Russian into P3, so a big mistake from Duffy in the 44 car. Just as we were singing their praises, they go and turn the competitive picture back on its head. I wonder if even it could have been contact maybe with a Pro class car in Miguel. Trying to see if there's any damage at all on the car. No, that car is clean, so Miguel didn't have anything to do with that. Cash has moved ahead, and Rushton actually is now very close. So they've all bunched back up again in that top class. 4 minutes to go. Second is not a big gap, and it really just showed the competitive picture in the AM class. But I think it's unlikely we'll see another change for position. But I've said that a few times now, and it keeps going not quite the way I expect. The 704 does look like it's struggling on its tyres a little bit. But are we going to see basically front engine rear drive cars taking home the lion's share of all the points this time by? Tenths between the two of them, so it could be pretty close actually. But I think, unless there's another error, and we will keep an eye on that, we're going to jump back up towards Freeman and Hettemer, who are still having a ding-dong battle even without Ellis being in the picture. Window's now closed. Let's hope everyone's done their pit stop. Oh, look, they have, except for the number 99, which has been in the pits for 23 laps. So I don't think it's going to really matter for them. The gap between Rushton and Cash is down to half a second, so still got the bit between the teeth. One little error, and that would be enough. You can see Duffy all over the back of Postel there. And I think they are absolutely chomping at the bit to get through and just be like, look, this isn't going to impact you, but I can see the podium, I can see the lead that I gave away. Just let me have a go at them, give me one more chance at it. Postel's like, no way. Oh, Rushton getting a little bit of dirty tyre through there. It's going to hurt them all the way through Druids and Lodge. Yep, you can see they've fallen back a little bit from that bad exit and the dirt on those tyres. So can they find a way through to make it happen? Let's see where our leader is and we can work out how many laps we're going to have. I think we're going to have one more lap, given the fact that we are at Druids now for our leader. So they will get one more lap in. Jump back down quickly just to check on our AM class battle for the lead. Seems to be settling down. Of course, they'll get one more lap. And Duffy is back ahead. With the call that the leader is on the final lap, so these guys will get +1 from this. And the gap stabilised back out to 1 second, so I think that battle is probably settled unless there's a mistake from Cash. But talking of battles which are settled, Garrett now just needs to just take it easy now. He's got a huge gap, doesn't need to push anymore. We'll have the fastest lap, and the pole led every single lap outside the pits and has really made this BMW M4 look great today. Really well planted, lovely over those curbs. We commented on that way back in the qualifying session. A well-deserved winner. Didn't need to have the best strategy, didn't need to have to make any moves, just was blindingly fast all day. Just being patient with the traffic here on this final lap. No needs to make anything happen. We've got a 12.5 second gap. Oh, as we see, oh dear, on that final lap, that is a bad time to break it as the race leader is coming by. That's the number 21 of Hay, who had a really clean race, I think, actually, up until this point. Only one little early mistake, but here we go, coming through for the final time. Garrett is going to win, take maximum points away from this week. Quick flash of the lights, wiggle of the steering wheel, a great win there for Garrett. Our strategy winner for today has to be Palmer. Push themselves right up the board. They know that they drove a great race, and that is a BMW 1-2. Langley comfortably now couple of seconds away. Gonna take the P3. We're going to drop back just to see if something happens here at the final corner at Lodge. Can Hedemer get a better exit? No, it's going to be Freeman for P4, Hedemer for P5, Rogers looking at P6. We're just going to jump back just to see where our M-Class guys are doing. They're going to be coming through any minute. So we've got Rogers there in the P6. Ellis, a difficult race in P7, could have been on the podium. Quickly in P8. Miguel in P9, but it's going to be a battle to the end for Cash and Duffy, Cash, Rushton and Duffy. Cash is going to take it. They did it the hard way. They spent most of the race not in the right position, but they come through to take it when it matters for the P1. Rushton in P2, Duffy licking their wounds in P3, Hostel down in the 12th position overall, and we'll have Berger, Kelter, and that is basically... Oh, and Timmy Boy will be the last person across the line. And a fantastic race there for everyone who took part. Thank you all for watching. And I hope you enjoyed round 3 of the SRC Thursday night GT3 Championship here at Alton Park. We're just waiting for confirmation of the final standings. But it is going to be Garrett who's going to be our race leader, race winner. As we just see a couple of cars returning to the grid. But after 16 minutes and 21 seconds and 38 laps completed, it is going to be Garrett in the 116 BMW taking the victory. Ooh. Palmer in P2, Langley in P3, P4 going to Freeman, P5 is Hedemer, Rogers in P6, Ellis in P7, Quigley P8, Miguel in P9. Cash takes the victory for the AM class with a P10 finish to boot. Rushton P11, Duffy in P12, rounding out our AM class podium. Postel P13, Berger in P14, Keltler in 15th, Gabino in 16th. Hay with that big crash at the end just to top it off in P17. Menominee recovering to P18, P19 for Harris. Bowler in P20 in the number 7, Radband also in the McLaren 17 in P21, Timmy in 22nd, Austell in 24th, Roberts, the big loser from the race with that big incident, costing themselves a chance for the win. Ola in P25, Kitos in P26, Semeno in P27, Bailiff many laps down in 28th, Castelli 8 laps down, Griffith, Donkin, McDougall, Surfatine, Robinson, Fatura, Kolar, Nate, Burton, Nesbitt, Grillifs, Cajona, Garcia, and Gigolo. Thank you very much for watching, and catch this stream again next week with the SRC Racing Club. Have a great evening. Good night.